Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Faladay Bell. I'm the Director of Community for the Center for Communication. We are an independent nonprofit that our mission is to connect students with media professionals in the industry in order to better prepare them for their future careers. You can follow the center on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @Syncom, and today's hashtag is office hours. This program will be recorded for those who can't tune in live. You can also watch our panels from recent seasons on our website and YouTube and Vimeo channels. We plan to host more virtual programs in the coming weeks. Next Thursday, we'll have Alexis Nowicki and Deborah Gim from FSG for Strauss and Giroux, the publishing company, and you can sign up for our upcoming events and newsletter on our website at centerforcommunication.org. Many thanks to Bree Frank for joining us today. This is going to be really exciting. Bree is a powerhouse and advocate for fellow people of color in media, and she is currently the Vice President of Physical Production for Unscripted at Reese Witherspoon's company, Hello Sunshine. She's working on docuseries and unscripted content. Before joining Hello Sunshine, she served as the executive in charge of production at Matador Content, where she managed a robust development slate as well as projects for Disney Plus, Apple TV Plus, Crackle, and Showtime. In 2017, she founded HUE You Know, an 11,000 plus member production resource group for media professionals of color. So very excited to hear from you, Bree. I will turn it over to you so that you can share a little bit about your journey before we start taking questions.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bree Frank. I am a native New Yorker who now lives in LA. I started in production 20-something years ago. I went to Long Island University where I got a bachelor's in journalism and then moved over to try to get my master's by going to LIU again and decided to venture into the work world to trying to find my passion for working in television and literally didn't know what to do. And so I started to temp at places that only worked at media companies, and I landed at an advertising company where I worked for 2.5 years as an account coordinator on projects like Campbell's Soup and AIG and Swanson, and knew after 9/11 I definitely was not in the right space. And so I made a concerted effort to switch over to production and didn't know how to break in. I would have these conversations with folks and everyone's like, it's really hard, it's really hard, it's who you know, it's who you know. And so I just failed a lot trying to get into the space where someone would accept me. And how I eventually got in is that I went to a taping for an infomercial and then went to someone that was behind the scenes and said, can I work for you? Here is my resume. And then they hired me as an intern. And after they hired me as an intern, 2 days later, they put me on as full-time staff. And then I started working on a show called Room Raiders for MTV. And then once they learned that I was smart and I could pick up other things, I started doing product placement for films and all these different adventures. And then I learned quickly, coming from a space that had a 401k and benefits and a long-term gig, that when the show is done, there's nowhere to go. And so I was out of work for a little bit, tried to figure out what is this freelance life and when do I get to go to the doctor? And so someone I worked with had an opportunity for me to work in on a show called The Makeover Story for TLC. So I drove to Philadelphia and then got the job, had nowhere to live, called up a friend from college, was like, doesn't your sister live in Philadelphia? And then paid her to sleep on our couch while I would try to figure out where to live. And then once I did that, that show went on hiatus. And then I went through the depression of what am I doing with my life? All my friends, it feels like they have their lives together. I am in this space where I want to do this thing. I feel like I'm flailing and I don't know what I'm doing. And so I later had an opportunity to move to California. I then went to California, could not find a job anywhere, came back to New York with my tail between my legs, then got another temp job at a magazine, a WWD magazine, and did a little bit of their advertising. And then a friend called me who had been working on a show called Wife Swap for ABC and was like, would you PA? And I was like, yes. So, I mean, I'm skipping a couple of things, but then I started working for that company, and then I ended up there for 10 years. And then that started my trajectory of like moving up consistently in television and production. And then I made my way from a coordinator, a PA, to a coordinator, to a production manager, to a senior production manager. And then I left that company eventually, went to Matador Content, where I line produced a number of shows for them. And then I went to another company where I line produced another company. And then I moved my family to LA. And then I came as the EIC for Matador. And then 2 years later, I was offered a position at Hello Sunshine. And that's kind of like the clean and easy route to how I came to Hello Sunshine.
Nice. Wow, that was really interesting. That's why I love doing these. Hopefully somebody asks a question about line producing, because I really want to know what that means and what you were doing specifically. But we'll get to our first question and then we'll come back to that. So our first question comes from Naomi Roberts, and Naomi is an undergrad at NYU. Naomi, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for coming and talking with us today. But my question is, looking back at your career now, what do you think were the most crucial steps or decisions you made to get where you are?
I think it was all of the mistakes I made. So the one thing I learned once I became a professional is that, like, you know, I was very successful as a student, right? Like, you kind of gave me the roadmap and I was easily able to navigate. Like, I skipped the 10th grade. I was always in honors. It was like all of these things I was able to do well. And then I got into television. I kind of clumped my way through it, right? And so I think that some of the most pivotal things were the things that I messed up. Like, I messed up a little job for a little show. I don't know if you heard of it, called Dora the Explorer. Went to the interview, completely botched it. Like, was not interviewing for the position that I was going for. I was like interviewing to be like the producer of it and not the PA. I learned a valuable mistake after I did that interview. And that moment is something that I pass on to every single green person that I met. Like, interview for the job that you have that you were going for, and not the two.
You have to explain that a little bit more. So what do you mean when you say you were interviewing for a producer when really the job was for a PA?
So back in the day, I think this is like before Google, you would like look online for jobs. It was like through Craigslist. It was like shady as I don't know what. Yeah. Or you would go through Mandy.com or entertainmentcareers.com. And so a job came up to be a production associate for this animated series for Nickelodeon. And I went on the job. And I was meeting with Dr. Christine Ritchie, who still gets credited to this day on Dora the Explorer. And she's interviewing me, and I can tell that, like, she likes me, but I'm kind of not getting it, because I'm telling her about how I hosted my own television show at college and how, like, I went to, like, the Million Women March and all of these things, and was like, yeah, I'm looking for a PA for the series that we don't know. And it's not sinking to me. It's because no one had ever really taught me how to interview for the job that you were going for, right? I was busy trying to show how smart I was for all these other things. Like, yeah, I'll do the little PA thing, but like when that's done, like, can I just like run everything? And it's like wrong. So I think that was like a very crucial moment for me in understanding. I have this thing I always say, like, pay your dumb tax and move on. So I paid my dumb tax. That is now a lesson that I spread far and wide. And then another opportunity that I had after I left my job at BBDO, I was going to visit my best friend who lives in LA. She was doing a travel nurse assignment. And on my very last day of that job, with my full intention to go to work in television, I got a call from the WB for a job for what's the comic thing? I can't think of it. But I said to the guy, I don't want to do that. I want to work in television. And he said, okay, well, the job's in LA. I said, well, I'll be in LA next week. Come to visit my best friend. So I drove from Rancho Cucamonga to Burbank, met with him, and then he offered me a job on a little show called Dawson's Creek. Nice. And then I said to him, I'm only here on vacation. You want me to start on Monday. Can I think about it? And then he gave me an opportunity to think about it and said, okay, you can let me know on Monday. And then when I called him on Monday to say, I'll take it, like, I will do it, he was like, I had to give the job to someone else.
Oh, man.
Huge lesson for me, because I was so terrified.
The pain.
I was so terrified that I was letting fear lead my decisions because I had spent an entire life making measured approaches towards success and only was making decisions that I knew would be successful, right? And so that's one of the largest lessons that I made. And then when I wasn't really getting where I wanted to be, I just made the safe bet over and over and over again, but didn't understand like why I wasn't getting what I wanted, but I was like nesting into safety as I was like moving throughout my career.
Nice. Interesting. Okay. Let's take our next question. I'm really into this. Okay. Our next question comes from Jennifer Morgan, and she's a recent graduate of Mount St. Mary's University. Jennifer, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi. So I'm a writer's PA on a freeform show right now, and I feel like I haven't really built any connections. We have been virtual since about March, though. As the lowest level employee, what's the best way to build and maintain relationships with the writers and producers? And I was also wondering what the best way to nurture those relationships after the room's over in an environment that's not really catered to PAs or assistants.
So this is what I think. I think that a lot of times people who are on like the lower tiers of production is that they always start with like, I'm just a PA, I'm just a writer assistant. And there is no just in production. Everyone has value and everyone has a place. And if you go into your work environment and you allow yourself to be just the writer's assistant, then that is what you will be viewed as. I think that you have to have respect for the work that people have done to get to their titles, but you yourself need to show who you are. And you can do something as simple as like trying to send out an email to a couple of your coworkers, right? Like it doesn't need to be, bless you. It doesn't need to be to like the top tier folks on the line, and arrange a Zoom for like after work cocktails at 6 o'clock and just start to navigate those relationships, because a lot of times your next opportunity is not necessarily coming from someone 2 tiers above you. It's coming from someone that you're working with right now. I can't tell you how many people that I started out with, we were all PAs that are now running companies, owning companies, and now those same resources and those relationships that I maintained from 20 years ago are people that I can still reach out to today. So I think that like, one of the things I would say to my interns is that your internship is about your access to the production company, right? It's about your access to the faces, like doing the research for who's who, what they're interested in, what interests you about what they're doing. If you leave your internship and you don't have 3 people that want to give you a job, at the end of that internship, you failed your internship, because that is the whole point of your internship. So if you want to sit there quiet and wait for people to tell you what to do and how to engage, it's like in the same way that you engage when it comes to school, in the same way that you engage with any relationship that you want to build, you have to show who you are, you have to show up, and you have to actively participate in it, and you need to jump, right? So you can't like, you can't shoot for the no, right? So like you're terrified that if you reach out and you send this email that someone's not interested, like why is the writer's PA reaching out for drinks, and you just don't know. Like you can be respectful of someone's time, you can engage in conversation, look up who they are, what they're working in, start the conversation by that, and then engage in something and see who is interested. Not everyone is going to be interested, but someone eventually will be.
Reach, that is some good information. I was just telling a group of people that I was on a panel with yesterday that it's very important to network, not only, you know, above you, but with your peers and those around you. That's how you get your next opportunity.
How Issa Rae got started. She networked with her peers.
Nice.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. Our next question comes from Han Lee. And let's see, Han, let us know what school or university you are with. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Bree. I just graduated from NYU. And my question is, so I'm familiar and I love all of Hello Sunshine's scripted content. And I know a lot of it comes from books that have like female protagonists. And I think that's really awesome. But as someone who's more unfamiliar with the unscripted side, can you explain like kind of like the visionary, I guess, process of what Hello Sunshine's unscripted content looks like?
So I'm literally at Hello Sunshine to build out the infrastructure for Unscripted. And the same way that women are centered in stories for scripted, it is the theme of the company, and it's the same thing for the Unscripted umbrella. Everything that we do is like we do few things well. it's the same principle. Like, it's all about like finding the voice of women, putting them at the center of those stories, and making sure that we are being authentic to the storytelling and not in a very untraditional, and to me, like ways that are not seen.
Nice. Okay, so our next question is anonymous, and so I'll go ahead and ask for them. What did success look like for you starting out compared to 10 years ago, and again to where you are now?
Okay, 10 years ago. I would say that as I tried to like work my way up the ladder, I would see 10 years ago I was probably a PM, right? I would look at what other people were doing and then go, okay, I want that, but not necessarily knowing the why. Like, it just felt like the next inevitable step. And I think that that is sometimes a trap, because sometimes you can find yourself like moving up towards things that you don't necessarily even want. And so 10 years ago, my success was defined by what other people thought that I could do. But it wasn't really what I wanted for myself, where now everything that I want is based on what I want, and it is my why, and it is not controlled or defined by anyone else. And so I think that what I fell for was, if someone said I wasn't ready for something, but I thought that I was ready, how they felt about me was more powerful than how I felt about myself. Where now, and maybe it's my age, you can't tell me what I want for myself more than I can for myself.
Nice. Okay. Our next question comes from Chantel Risher, and I believe she's from St. Francis. Chantel, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi. Yes. I did attend St. Francis in 2017. Right now I work at the Clio Awards. But my question is, did you ever feel that experience in the TV industry is valued more than pursuing a higher education such as a master's degree?
Here's the overall, yes. There are a lot of people that are successful in television who don't even have their college degrees, and it won't dictate your salary, right? But it will dictate your knowledge and your background. And so I think that like pursuing your master's, your PhD is like fine, but you are going to need hands-on experience. Like, if someone had to take a PA, or a person who had only PA'd on set 20 different times versus your master's, that PA is going to get the job every single time. And so I think that your education is beneficial for you, because television and media is so fickle, and it could be that it's not something that you necessarily want to pursue because it is very difficult to navigate. And so it's wise to me to be able to have, it's not a plan B, but just be able to be prepared to be able to pivot if it's something that you can't hack. A lot of times it's like financial issues and the inconsistency of it. But I can tell you, even for myself, I want someone that understands how a set is run. I want someone who understands the culture and language of production. And I'm going to take that over someone who studied it like every single time.
Good to know. Okay, our next question comes from Maddie. Maddie, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, so I am an employee at Ogilvy, and I've worked there for about 2 years. And I work in account management, but want to make the transfer over to production. And I know that you start off in account as well. So just wondering if you have any like skills, or if there were anything in particular about your original role that really you could utilize when you were talking about production.
Okay, so this was like really hard, because even when I was at BVDO, I was in account management, and I wanted to try to even move over to the production team, and I couldn't. So, I mean, like, it was so difficult. I think that just having the ability to be able to like prioritize deadlines and understand the efficiency, and being able to understand why it is that your role is important, are all transferable skills, right? It's all something you can do easily in production, and maybe become like a production coordinator, like using those management skills from working in account management and transferring over to production management. With that being said, you will still need to PA before anyone sees you as a production coordinator. And that's the deal. I've had 45-year-old PAs. I've had people who worked in an industry where they killed it for years, but wanted to work in television and they had to PA, and you kind of have to humble yourself. I made a lot of those mistakes even when I moved to LA to pursue a career in LA that I had already, I'm like, I'm an AP now. I can't PA. I should have PA. Because by the time you get on that set and someone sees how smart you are and how efficient you are, you have that next job before you know it, and you make up that time quite quickly.
Nice. This is a master class. Okay. Our next question comes from Fanya. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Fanya, and she is currently interning for HBO. Fanya, go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, thank you for having this. I'm currently interning for HBO, and I'm really interested in development, and I really admire Hello Sunshine's just everything they're working on, and everything they've been working on, and all the Emmys they've been nominated for. And I was just wondering, what interests you in Hello Sunshine and to work for Hello Sunshine?
I have to say that, you know, I've been in this industry for a long time, and I have actually said this a few times before, but I really mean it. As a woman of color in this industry and in production, you are often not allowed to bring your entire selves to work, right? It's like, to be in production, you have to do the work. And so oftentimes I had to not pretend that, and I don't mean this in the literal sense, but it's like, to pretend not to be a mother, to pretend not to be a mom, to pretend not to be Black. Like, there are all these things going in this world that deeply affect you, and people just pretend like it doesn't exist, right? Now, you certainly have coworkers that understand, and you relate on your off time to have these like conversations, but there's so many different things that happen when you feel like you're not being supported, you're not being reflected, and you're not doing work that reflects what it is that you're passionate about or doesn't feel rewarding. And Hello Sunshine is everything that you can imagine it is. Like, you really are able to bring your entire self to work. All of me is welcome, all of it. And so the ability to be in a space that is quite intentional, that has missions, that really focuses on uplifting and amplifying the voices of the marginalized is a dream. So it's able to take what I am passionate about when I'm out of work and bringing it to work along with my skill set. And it's the perfect place for me to be at this point in my life.
Nice, nice. Okay, awesome. Our next question comes from Trina, and she's currently a student at Tufts. Trina, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, my name is Trina. I'm a rising senior, so I'll be graduating in a year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a scary place to be in right now because I think I have some huge ambitions. But it feels scary to go out into a world that feels quite different than the one I imagined. And so something I'm wondering is what advice would you have, and this is very broad, but what advice would you have for those who are genuinely trying to make space within the industry, for example, starting a production company or centering voices that are normally pretty marginalized? And this is like a long game question. Like, I know that there are a lot of steps, especially given the world that we're stepping into or are in.
This is what I will say. Here's the thing that's so beautiful about when you work in production and television. You know, you can have a passion to work in production and television, and you don't actually need a production company to do that, right? If you were a doctor, you need a hospital, right? So many other professions, like, you can't do the work until you are in the establishment. And television is the space where you can take your iPhone and make something beautiful. Because if you really love it, you don't need the audience, right? You're doing it for you. You're doing it because you're passionate about it. And one of the things that I often tell the people in HUE when I speak to them is that sometimes you're going to have to take that job that doesn't necessarily align with what you're going. If you're not independently wealthy, you can't necessarily like afford to not work. And so what I say to them, for the people that can't sleep in their car until they hit it big or they find fame, is use that job as your GoFundMe, right? And then you don't feel like you're being used. And then you don't feel like you're doing this job that you don't really want to do, and you're so much smarter and you're so much this. If you can say, I'm going to be at this job for a year, I'm going to save as much money as I can. I'm not going to go to Starbucks. I'm going to just save, so that when the right opportunity comes up, maybe it doesn't pay as much, maybe it doesn't, whatever, I have a cushion to fall back on. But if you limit yourself and believe that the only time that you can create is when other people give you the thumbs up to create the thing that you're passionate about, then you have to question what it is that you're doing. Because this world, right, especially so many people in HUE, they're doing it on their own with their peers, making the thing that they want to make and putting it on YouTube. And then at the same time, like having that duality, being able to go into the spaces and waiting for a Hello Sunshine or HBO Max to let them in the door, so then they can do it under that format. So I would just say, like, do not limit yourself or believe that you are constricted because of the time. I have lived through 9/11. I have lived through the recession. I have lived through being a coordinator with a baby when no one else had kids, like except for the people that ran the company. I am literally a compilation of my greatest mistakes and my greatest achievements. Like, I take it all with me, and you have to be able to, like, put your head down and keep going.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice. Okay, so our next question comes from Macaulay, and he is a 2020 grad. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, thank you so much for talking with us today. It's been really insightful so far. Something that you mentioned is that you handed your resume to someone working on an infomercial. And I was wondering what sort of relevant work you were able to list on your resume that made that person want to hire you. Because I've, completed a few production internships while I was in college, but I often still feel really underqualified when I apply for work. And I was wondering, how did you both develop your resume and also the confidence to be able to hand out your resume in the manner in which you did?
Okay, confidence is just do it. It's not about, you could be scared out of your mind. So what? Everyone's scared. Like, a lot of people, I realized this, like, as I got old, like, I would, like, move up the ladder, and, like, the more titles I got, the more weird people would get around me. And I'm like, it's just me, right? So, like, I've done the work, but everyone's afraid of something. You still have to, like, stretch and do what you can. I think in terms of the resume, this is, by the way, guys, 22 years ago, like, I don't know what was on that resume. It was like the work that I had done in accounting, some receptionist jobs that I had. I won't give you that advice. This is the advice that I will give you. You want to work in production. Do you know the websites that hire for production? Do you know about Staff Me Up? Staff Me Up is like the leading place where people in jobs post, right? People post jobs in HUE. They post jobs in women working in reality TV. They post jobs in Pink Mafia. There are all of these Facebook groups that post jobs. And then there's also Staff Me Up, right? Not Mandy. Don't trust the things on Mandy. I wouldn't say don't trust Mandy, right? I would say that people do post in Mandy, but the most premier place that people are posting jobs is in Staff Me Up for Unscripted. You could read the job description of the thing that you want to do and understand how those job qualifications align with things that you have done, and let your resume speak to that. So if you want a job as a production assistant, and there's a production assistant job that someone is hiring for, and they're asking for things, how is what you've done in the past translate to that job, and how can you incorporate that into your resume? So much of the jobs that you will get is understanding what people are looking for. And I think that looking at other job descriptions is the thing that will help you understand what it is that you want to do. But you have to know where to go. And I find that I've spoken to people that go to Dartmouth and Harvard, and they still don't know, like, how do you find production jobs? So a lot of it is Facebook groups. I used to kill production hubs and entertainmentcareers.net and mandy.com. But I think that more people have leaned towards the Facebook groups and Staff Me Up, which has like 330,000 people in like their database or something like that.
Wow, nice. Awesome. Okay. So our next question comes from Christine, and she just graduated from Columbia Journalism School. Christine, go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. So we've seen a lot of shakeups in all areas of media in the past year, and due to COVID, like, production teams are getting smaller. So as the VP of production, what new needs have arisen since quarantine, and how can we as new grads meet those needs and secure employment through tough times?
Okay. So right now, I would say that every single production company is trying to figure out how to navigate around COVID. And COVID is something that's like, the goalpost keeps moving. The understanding of what it is keeps moving. And so one of the things that I've been tasked with is like coming up with like a COVID safety plan. And it includes working with people like, I think it's Set Medic LA, where you right now as a PA can go get a COVID certification, right? Now, if you think about that, even if you don't have the PA skills, like all these production companies are like scrambling to get people on set. You can go, you get your certification and add that to your resume. You have now upped yourself tremendously to being able to say that you can do, you understand COVID safety. So I think that production crews are trying to think about how to make it smart. It is not something that will forever exist. Like things will eventually go back to normal, but right now, every single production company is concerned about the safety of the set members and the talent on set. And so it's all of us trying to navigate, like, how do we do this thing that is so necessary, but also do it in like the safe way as possible. And a lot of us are leaning on places like Set Medic LA, where I'll tell you right now, you can be a compliance safety officer, and Set Medic will charge me $500 for 10 hours of work. That's a pretty good start to a production career. And I don't know how much they actually give the workers, right? But that's still a good chunk of money to get to be able to have the experience to be on set and to navigate and see who's who and what they're doing. I think it's a great way, like, in the door.
Nice. Okay, our next two questions are anonymous. First one is, if you're having a hard time getting experience, but you have lots of education, what would you suggest?
I would suggest tapping into your peers and attaching yourself to passion projects. If you have the time and if you can afford to do it, there are plenty of producers who do real work, who have passion projects, and they have no money to do it. And they just want help on set. And they, I think even Stephanie has like a link for passion projects where people are like looking for crew. And then you can volunteer to work for that set. You can't be abused. You can't do it forever, right? Like, we don't want you working for free. But at the same time, you can have the experience and use that relationship to leverage yourself for a paid opportunity.
Nice. Okay, our next anonymous question is, do you have any tips for developing a mentor-mentee role?
I just actually did participate in something where we talked about the mentor-mentee relationship. I get this question a lot in HUE. I think that, like, the thing that you should know is that, like, if I had the bandwidth, I'd mentor 1,000 people, but like I work like 60 and 70 hour weeks. So I'll just speak for me. I think that a lot of times you want to make sure that it's not a one-way street, right? So when you engage with that mentor, what are you bringing to the table? I think a lot of times people are attracted to the title, but not actual the work. So it's like, have you done the research on the person that you are interested in being your mentor? And have you thought about what you can bring to the table for them to make their lives easier, so that it's not a one-way street where it's a, you know, it's like one of those things where it's the get and the give, and that you respect their time. I have had people that want to talk to me and then want an hour of my time twice a month. You can have a 15-minute conversation with me and get a lot accomplished, and then, like, let's touch base. Like, let's build the relationship where we can get to the point where we can be on the phone for an hour. But if you don't respect the time that it takes out of an hour of someone's day, then you're not ready to be mentored yet. And I think that, like, especially if you are a person of color, that it's not just about getting a mentor, it's also about getting an advocate. And so, which is something that someone brought up, and I thought it's a good point, right? I've had mentors that were people of color, and I've had mentors that were white, because you need someone to advocate for you and tell you the language. And the truth of the matter is that if you are a white person in production, like, sometimes you get access to things that people of color don't, and you need to understand how to navigate those territories. And I think that you have to be able to figure out what it is that you want out of the mentorship. Because I think that a lot of times I have people that come to me and they don't know what they want, right? And so then I'm like, what you want me is to tell you that you were good enough. Mm-hmm. So I will tell you that you were good enough. You want me to tell you to not be afraid, so I can tell you not to be afraid. That's not your skill set. It is how you feel about yourself and how you feel if you are worthy or not, right? And so I was listening to a podcast a couple of months ago, and it was like, It's not about being entitled, but it's understanding that you are deserving and you are worthy of what it is that you want in this life. And when you are approaching these mentors and you are asking them to help you, if you fundamentally do not understand the worthiness, that you are worthy of having your greatest dreams come true, then you're not going to be able to take, a mentor can talk to you all day. You're not going to get it. You're not going to be ready.
I really wish I can just transport myself back to when I was in college so I could just listen in now, because this is some great stuff. All right, our next question comes from Brina. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. She's a rising senior at NYU. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Bree. And you did say my name right. It is Brina. As a Black woman about to graduate next year, entering this industry, I would love to hear from you if you feel like the industry is changing as far as representation and inclusion, and how can young people like me entering it for the first time empower ourselves and push these initiatives forward, even if we're not in companies that exemplify those values like Hello Sunshine?
I think that you have to stand up for who you are and figure out what it is that you want for yourself. And, at the end, I have had to, in my own ways, recognize that even in me getting where I have in my life professionally has come with a little bit of being complicit because of the time that I was in. And that's kind of a little bit of a hard reckoning, because in a lot of spaces, especially when you're a woman of color, you're not allowed to be an introvert, right? You're not allowed to speak up, because you get all of the microaggressions of having tone issues, and oh, she's angry, and oh, she's blah, 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 right? I think that what is so beautiful about this generation is how unapologetic you are about who you are. I grew up in a time where I was scared to wear braids to work. Afraid, thought it was unprofessional to have braids in my hair, and knew that it can jeopardize me getting in the door. And so I think that you have to lean on what it is that you're good at, right? Like, be an unapologetically Black woman. It is a beautiful thing. And you can do it in a way where you're honoring yourself every day. Now, are you gonna get challenges? Are people gonna come at you crazy and say crazy things and try to define you? Yes, they are. But if you are consistent and you stand up for yourself, and you are riding this wave that we are on, because it is a wave, okay? I started HUE 3 years ago. No one understood what I was trying to do, right? If you can just stay consistent with understanding you have value and you have worth and you have something to say, because that was HUE. That HUE for me was saying to the world, I have something to say, right? And leaning into that you will find that someone will get it. Not everybody. It's not for everyone to get. It's like how I raise my daughters. I tell them, do not shoot to be liked. It is a trap. Do not want to be liked. Be yourself, and then everything else kind of comes. And that doesn't mean that you won't encounter failure. It doesn't mean that you won't encounter racism, but at least you can go to sleep every night knowing that you tried and you did your best.
Excellent, nice. All right, our next question comes from Antrice, a recent graduate of Hofstra University. Antrice, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, so like she said, I'm Antrice. I'm a recent graduate from Hofstra. So my question is, as a woman, especially a Black woman, was there a time where your position was undermined as a line producer, and how did you go about navigating those difficult work environments?
How much time do we have? Okay. First of all, I was at a place where I was hiring white men and negotiating higher rates, and I was training them. And I would go to my boss and say, I want to become a line producer. And the goalposts kept moving. Oh, you're not ready. Oh, you blah, blah, blah. Oh, when your kids get older. And I just kept going, okay, now I've been here too long. I know I need to make a move. So I'm gonna keep asking for what I want, but then go after what I want on a separate level. And so I just kept going and going and going. After the jobs, I kept getting no's. And then eventually someone said yes, and then I left, and then the job was shopped. I then had another conversation once I was a line producer, I don't know, like co-EP who had come to me and said, there was like this editor and he was having this conversation about the rate, and the editor was disrespectful to him. He didn't want to talk to me about his time card because he was eating a sandwich. And then the co-EP came into my office and was like, listen, like, I'm just going to deal with that because I kind of feel like there's a tone issue. And I said, tell me what you mean by tone issue. And then I had to tell him what my job description was and what his job description was, and remind him that he had to come into my office and close my door to talk to me while he was sitting in the pit. And I don't do that normally, but sometimes you gotta let them know. You gotta let them know. So I'm telling you, it happens a lot. And mostly the thing that I will always say is that, like, I sit at a 2. I do not ride other people's emotional wave. I do not allow other people's moods to determine what my mood is going to be for the day. But every now and again, someone like presses you and you're trying to figure out, like, was that racism? Was that, like, you're like trying to like navigate. You're like, no, it definitely was. And then you just stand up for yourself and you move on. And he and I were fine, but I had to set the tone. Like, listen, you think there's tone. I'm going to show you tone. And you're going to understand that you don't get to tell me how to do my job because I hired you.
Nice.
And then we're going to move on. And then we're fine. Like, I'm going to be like, coffee?
Nice. Can't hold on to it.
No, you move on. You can't take it personal. It's not personal.
All right. We have another couple of anonymous questions. What top 3 to 5 mental and emotional skills did you have to hone or rely upon to get where you are today?
Oh, this is fun. I'm going to just quote my favorite book in the world, which is The 4 Agreements. One is, don't take anything personal. Nothing anyone does or says is about you. It is one of the favorite agreements that I've read from that book because it is so true. People live in their own worlds, in their own realities, and they are living, you are sometimes just the, on the end of whatever it is that they're feeling. And so I don't take anything personal, right? I show up for the moment, I say what I gotta say, I move on, right? I also do not make assumptions, right? Have the courage to ask the questions you want answers to. That's one of the other agreements. And I might be jacking up what is, but it's like the gist of it. Do you ever have that thing in life where, like, you're having a conversation with a friend or a partner, and you've had a whole conversation in your head about, then they're gonna say this, and then they're gonna say that, and then and you've had this whole interaction, but none of it actually happened. Sometimes you might get an email from a colleague, and you may feel like the temperature is off. Rather than making a whole story in your head about what it is they meant when they asked the question, ask for clarity, right? And I think that changes the way that people interact with you, because they realize, I am not riding your emotional wave. You can come in here at a 10. You can be as upset as possible. I will be right here when you are done. So I think that those are the things that I always lean into, is like really trying to stay centered and to be myself, to understand my value and to not take anything personal and to keep pressing on.
Yes. Okay, so our next question, another anonymous question. What tips do you have for finding and staying engaged in a community like HUE You Know, especially during this time?
I think that, like, once you are in the group, that you just have to engage in the community. We're gonna have panels, we have mixers. We're like starting to back up now that everything is like virtual, because usually we do them in person. And then ask smart questions. I think that that's one of the other things, that it's fine to ask questions, but like, are they smart? Or have you really done the research so that the question is grounded in something, and be willing to listen to what people are saying, and then, you know, pick up what you need and then leave the rest. I hope I answered the question, but I think that it's up to you. Like, in the same way, are you the type of person that goes to a bar, sits there by yourself and drinks alone? Or if you're standing next to someone you know, do you engage in conversation? In the same way that you would engage in conversation if you were at a bar, at a club, is the same way that you need to do it in a professional manner.
All right, next anonymous question. I am making a career change into TV, documentary, journalism. What are some tools, sources I could use to break into the TV industry? A lot of places want an intern in college or a degree in the field, And how do I navigate around that with no experience in television production or journalism?
I think this is like you have to be a student of the thing that you want to get into. And I think that you need to, it's not just about wanting to break in. Do you know exactly what it is that you want? Or do you want people to tell you what you're good at? So if you want to break into the industry, how much do you know about the industry? Do you know where the jobs are? Do you know who the people that are hiring? I'll tell you a little trick that I love that I've been telling people is that, like, I get emails all day, hundreds, LinkedIn requests, all the things. Do you know what people don't get? Mail anymore. Do you know where mail goes? Straight to the person's desk. So if you are truly interested and you've done the craft and you've done the work, who do you admire? Whose work do you admire that you truly know and understand? Formulate something that is beautiful and personal to that person and reach out to them. Does it mean that you're going to get a no? I don't know. But it definitely, you won't know unless you try. And then you also need to be invested into the thing that you want to switch over to, right? It's like, it's not enough just to want it. Where are you doing the work to make the switch? I remember years ago, the thing that made me think about this is that I was working at a company and someone had FedExed their resume to my boss. And my boss was so surprised by it that she then said to me, like, oh, this is so weird. Call this kid and see if they're interested in an internship. Now, you can't FedEx every single person you're interested in, but if you are thoughtful about the industry that you want to break in and you show that in your presentation, I think that you will get more yeses than you will get nos.
Nice. Okay, so it looks like, I think we'll have time for about, maybe we can take 3, but we have 2 more questions. These are anonymous questions. If we get another live question, we can go ahead and take that one. But for now, we have anonymous questions. The next one we have is, I'm trying to build a career as a researcher, but I have mostly worked with archival research. What kind of skills do you look for in a researcher for nonfiction development?
Nonfiction development. I think that I will say this is, I know someone that works on like an archival show. They are desperately always, researchers are like very difficult to find. People that really know it, like know how to work a LexisNexis, really know how to get curious about their research and deep dive and dig. And I think anything that you can show for things that you were able to dig up and show proof of your work is the thing that will make people lean into you and want to see and have you invested into the series. And so usually for researchers, like you start out as like a researcher's assistant and then you work your way up to researcher, and then it becomes quite easy for you to stay in that field because that many people, they're not really that good at it, right? I worked on a crime show. You had to look up murders and it was like all this gory information. And I worked with a woman who was like, she was a sleuth. Like she really knew how to get in there. And so any display, anything that you can show, improve that shows that you really understand what it takes to research and archive, I think will, and you can present that in your cover letter and then show proven work in your resume, I think it'll get you far.
Nice. Okay, our next question. Line production seems intimidating since it requires so much knowledge of equipment and the way everything works. Did you gain that knowledge on the fly?
Yes, I'm always learning on the fly. So I think that line producing is certainly difficult. And I think that I believe in hiring smart people around me. Like I don't know everything. I know who to call. You know what I mean? Like I know how to hire a production manager who really knows how to do the thing, can translate it to me in a way that I can understand. I think that the way that I will describe it is that you shouldn't be intimidated by it, but if you are and you're scared, you should totally go for it, right? Like the more it terrifies you, it's like the more you need to go after it, because then you're like living inside the safe space. And I think that what you do by the time you make your way to line producer, you production coordinator, you production manage, you've established these relationships, you know who to call, so it just makes your job easier. You don't like wake up as a line producer, you're like years before you get there.
Nice. Okay, so our final question is anonymous. So I'll go ahead and ask, as a recent graduate, I'm struggling with deciding whether to apply for only entry-level jobs or only unpaid internships to get my foot in the door. especially now with COVID, it seems like moving to a more media-centric city prior to getting a job would also be extremely risky. What would you recommend for someone searching to gain further experience and networking opportunities to get in the door with these situations in mind?
Okay. So it's difficult, right? Like if you don't live in New York, LA, or Atlanta, it's gonna be very hard for you to find a job in production, right? There are certain cities, certain hubs that have film commissions. And what I would encourage you to do is to find the film commission in your area that knows what films are coming to town and see if they can help you get a PA job on set for those shows. I shot in North Carolina for years, and we would reach out to them for local PAs. And so that could be a way of getting your feet in the door. I think that there is a space for unpaid work, but I don't think that's where you should live. Like at the end of the day, we need to be paid for our time. And so I don't know where you live. It's like, do you live in Utah? Do you live in North Carolina? Like that's a hard one to answer. I think that one of the things you can do is like make sure that you set up a profile on Staff Me Up just so you can see the job listings that are come, because sometimes it's local to a specific area. And people are so desperate to find PAs. And there's a website that I used to go to all the time called Production Hub, and you can like set up a profile for your skills. And then if a production management is coming to town, they look there, they'll reach out to you, and they just want a body that knows how to use a car, not kill anyone, and get lunch on time. So you can use that to kind of advance yourself until you can move to an LA or New York, which if you want a robust career, you essentially like, certainly there are surprise stories, but I don't know many people that have been able to do it outside of like Miami, Atlanta, New York. Utah has, Detroit.
Bree, this has been a master class. I'm telling you, you have been dropping gems left and right. I'm gonna be watching this myself, taking notes. Any final thoughts to give everyone?
I think that what I find for myself is that I wish someone, like the skills, if you're smart and you want it, like you're gonna figure it out, like you're gonna do it. And it may not be clean. Like I think that people, even if you see me and where I am, is that you think that my career went like this, when in reality it was like here and then up and then down and then like unhappiness. And you are going to have those moments where you feel like, why am I doing this? But I will tell you that if you stay committed and you are authentic to yourself and you understand and keep centered, that ultimately it will be worth it. And you cannot compare yourself to anyone else. You might start out with a peer that jumps up and becomes a supervisor and you're still a PA. Do not run anyone's race. Run your own race. It is not a competition. The sum of your experiences will get you to where you're going, but that cannot happen if you're always looking to see what someone else is doing. I've never, after I learned the lesson, compared my road to anyone else. The reason why I got to Hello Sunshine is because the moment that I became authentic, the moment that I focused on myself, the moment that I created HUE and people saw that I was investing back into a community, they were so impressed with that. I make no money off of HUE, right? None. So all of these years of experience, all of these shows that I did, and the thing that got me in the door was that I was willing to invest in something other than myself and be honest and true about it. And those are the kind of things that help people see me in a different way. And I just want you to understand your worth, to believe in yourself, and to understand that you're deserving and worthy. And at the same time, learn the skills, do the research, and it will come. But it is not a race. Do not fall into that trap of, but I'm 30, but I'm 35, but I'm 36. None of it matters. What matters is that you are doing something that feels good to you, and then the accolades will come. They will. They just will.
This has been such a great sermon. Everyone, please catch the replay. We will be posting this as soon as we make any couple of edits. Please don't forget to join us for our next office hours with FSG. 2 recent graduates, one Alexis and Deborah Gim, publicist and an editorial assistant. So that should be really fun and interesting. Also go to our website, centerforcommunication.org, and sign up for our newsletter. And feel free to donate. We are a nonprofit organization, and we want to keep all of our programming free for students. So please feel free to go to centerforcommunication.org and donate. Thanks so much, Bree, and see you guys next time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for
Bye,
your time.
everyone.
Appreciate it.